doing right now? Who are you?
Who am I?
There's a random person here. There's a third wheel.
Who is this?
What's happening right now? Let me just address the elephant in the room, and that there's more than two of us today. Welcome to StrongCast, episode numero 3. Like of the Spanish kick lately.
I see this.
It's kind of like goofy. So anyways, I'm Mark.
I'm Justin.
And special guest today,
Lauren.
She's the local badass, basically. GrindFit.
Thank you.
She knows all the things. Yeah. You've been in the industry forever.
Since 2000, I've been training people, but I was an athlete in college, so I've been around strength and conditioning for a very, very, very long time.
And an accomplished Olympic weightlifter as well.
That's true. And that actually plays into the story itself of how you ended up doing what it is that you're doing now, but we'll get to that at some point. What did we kind of...
So I think let's tell us a little bit about some certifications and your education.
Background.
I went to college and studied exercise and sports sciences at East Carolina University. And I did an internship at Kennedy Space Center doing corporate fitness. I didn't train the astronauts, but
That'd be pretty cool.
That is pretty badass.
but I worked with a lot of the engineers for it. Now doesn't exist anymore. I then went back to graduate school at University of Central Florida. I still had a year eligibility left to run track, so I used that kind of as motivation to go back to school. But I studied exercise physiology as well there. I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach. Did a strength and conditioning coach track, but ended up in the clinical side. So I did a lot of the research and testing and.
What drove you that direction?
The clinical side. Well, they really didn't have a strength and conditioning side.
Well, that'll do it.
There was supposed to be two, but they wouldn't let me take any of those classes because no one else was in those classes, so you got forced into clinical, and that's just how it was.
So you just kind of got shoved in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was it an internship that you had, or?
But I did do a graduate assistantship in strength and conditioning at UCF.
Nice.
So,
and what was that like? What kind of athletes were you working with? Was it mainly track or different sports?
I did track and field. I did men's and women's golf. I was an assistant for football, assistant for soccer, men's soccer, and women's crew.
So nice. Football and football American? No. That works. Football?
So that's a pretty wide array of athletes in different sports. What was it? The training that you guys did with each individual team sport different, or how much were they the same? I guess I can see. What were the congruencies, some things you saw across the board?
It depended on the sport, but we tried to stay really sport specific. But every sport did the Olympic lifts as a basis. Even the golfers we had doing Olympic lifting for power. And that's when I learned, I found my love for Olympic lifting. Is I had taken the USA weightlifting course, and every strength coach I've ever had was like, "Oh, you should compete. And then I went to my first meet, qualified for the American Open. So I kind of just found this like new love or passion.
Around what year was that? You got it.
That would have been 2001, 2002.
That's awesome. So for some of you guys who don't know what the American Open is, it's a yearly tournament. So it's held once a year. You have to qualify just to get to this. So it's kind of like the best people, the best lifters in the nation, they kind of all collect for that one tournament. So it's pretty hard. What's the process with that? How many tournaments do you have to place in?
It's 5 qualifying total.
just with just your total.
Yeah.
So you have to you can do one meet if you wanted to,
Right.
and get that total. Then it's
As long as it's a
solidified spot.
sanctioned meet, yeah.
Okay, that's right. So it has to be sanctioned.
That's pretty bad. So it's not like, I know in powerlifting, you have to meet, well, I think it's a total also, but you have to do so many competitions to actually qualify. So this is just, if you get it in one go, you're
Yeah.
good to go. I've been doing the wrong sport.
You're
I'm an
going
idiot.
that
No,
direction. though.
they might have changed it
Yeah.
now.
Well, the
but
totals
as
are
far as-
probably it's getting more
It's usually
competitive. So
based on the
sure.
qualifying
Sure,
total.
yeah.
So each year they come up with a qualifying total per weight class, and then you make that weight class total. You submit your, meet, and then you can go to a national meet. So
You know what I thought about doing is just take one class at a university, and then that way I can go to like university nationals
Yeah,
and like
well-
go to one of those. Kendrick Ferris did for a long time too. He was taking 1 or 2 classes.
oh really?
So he could big, yeah.
Got it.
So
Nice.
he could compete in those tournaments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You're a little too-
all right, so we'll continue on.
now a master.
You were at UCF. You're at UCF. So you're doing some internships there, and then what degree did you end up finishing with, and then where'd you head after that?
It was exercise physiology was the degree. I was competing in weightlifting at the time. Ended up, following my coach down here in Sarasota, Rich Lansky, and competing with him. But he had a job opening in sports performance, which I wanted to do one-on-one versus working with teams. So it was a one-on-one sports performance facility right up my alley, and that's how I ended up here in Sarasota.
Rich Lansky was in Orlando originally?
No.
Where was he before he moved here?
He was here.
Oh, he's always here.
Yeah,
Okay.
he had his practice here, Optima Performance Training Incorporated.
Very cool.
So,
And so he's kind of one of the big wigs in the area as far as Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
Nice. So what was that like working at the performance facility? How does it differ from kind of what you do now here?
what I do here,
Yeah, as opposed to personal training and the clientele you had there and the style of training. Did you enjoy one more than the other?
well, I worked more with athletes there. So it was a lot of high school or collegiate athletes and developing them to their sport. Now I kind of do just general fitness and more posture alignment. So it's a lot different.
Yeah, sure.
They both work together, but it's completely different programming. I still try and periodize my clients so that they're not stuck in one energy system for a long
Right.
time, but it's completely different.
I feel like a lot of people don't really do that. They just want to give the client a good sweat. As long as they feel good, that's it. There's no real thought process or progression or periodization.
Right.
So I think that's a really good quality to have. It just proves that you've been doing this a while and you know what you're doing.
I think for
It's
most
pretty
people,
awesome.
what happens is that you've got such a varied background that it's easy to kind of understand that you can switch amongst different modalities. For most people, it's like, I'm certainly guilty of this. I was like, everybody powerlifts because it seems to, you get to see the numbers, and for me it was gratifying enough, but you and I keep talking that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. They
Right.
need moving targets, and I think you and I had this conversation, you're kind of bridging that. You were concerned about how you would structure a client's training because you were worried that they'd kind of be all over the place and get bored.
Right.
And I think when you sort of take an approach of attacking different, we just say energy systems
Yeah.
and even different movements.
But really, as far as working with clients, what are they there for? What are they paying you for? You want to get in their head. They want whatever they came to you for, you want to give them. Because I've had clients to where they've given me a program and been like, okay, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you what you
Interesting.
want because that's what you're paying me for. So
Right.
it's giving them what they want, but also building the relationship with them is what usually develops that loyalty among the clients.
So it's like, hey, I saw this WOD. Let's do this WOD for the next 3 months.
It's like, okay, if you
But-
want to, sure.
But-
Sure.
Maybe I can put my own twist on it.
Is
Right.
that going to get you to your fat loss goal? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, like I've had people actually give me like, I don't know if you remember, you might be too young for this, but Body for Life.
I've heard of it, yeah.
So they would be like, I want to go through this whole program. It's 12 weeks. Please just take me through. Or they'll be coming from, let's say they're just seasonal and they're coming from another trainer. I just take them through what they want to go through because that's what they're paying me to do. I'm going to do what they've asked me to do. So sometimes you really don't get the creativity that you want unless they give you that freedom to do that. That's what makes
That's
this
interesting
job very
because
difficult.
it's almost what I've learned is this is not so much. Most people don't care how much you know. It's more of a people business. So if you can't relate with that person, if you're not personable, you're not going to do very well.
No.
It almost doesn't even matter how much you really know as long as you are personable and they like you.
Yeah.
You got to build a friendship and bond. You start there and you can kind of do pretty much whatever you want at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That really has been one of the trickiest things, is that you would think, once again, I'm guilty of this, and I think we all are. We're passionate about seeing people succeed and achieve a certain goal, especially with your varied background, and even yours. Like, you're pretty up there as far as like what I would consider. I'm like the freshest, newest guy in this whole mix, and I've always kind of believed that if I see someone overweight, I'm going to be like, let's focus on fat loss. But that's not necessarily what they want. You almost have to just, like you said, if someone comes to you with a program, you just got to be like, all right, well, this is what you're paying me.
And then through the relationship, you can start to educate them a little bit more and let them kind of ease into, okay, they know what they're talking about. Let's do it their way. So it takes time to build that relationship, but really you have to start with what they want, because they're not going to keep coming if you're not doing what they ask you to do.
Kind of like what you said when we first started talking. Like, how do you see someone across the gym that you don't know and go, oh God, they're going to kill themselves because they're doing it that way, without coming off like the dick
and actually saying something?
One thing I say is, what muscle are you trying to work? It's just a
all the wrong ones.
I'm always trying to learn new things. Okay?
Build a bigger butt, all right? I just want to build booty.
And I want to know, like, what is this doing for you? I want to know what is this doing for you, because, you know, maybe they have a new exercise that I've never seen before, and I'm going to learn something.
Right, that's true.
So I don't, you know, but I mean, I've studied and watched people for so long that I can watch you do a lat pull down, and I know that you're not recruiting the lats. So I'll say, what muscle are you trying to work? That doesn't mean, what if I'm trying to work my traps?
Yeah.
Well then,
that's a good point.
I just learned something, because it just depends on, you know, I don't know anything about them other than the fact that I think you should be working your lats at the lat pull.
That's true.
But you could be working your traps. Then okay, perfect.
Sometimes we hold on to our style of training or our methodologies, and it's hard to sometimes open up to someone cueing you something differently on the squat. Because I've been doing it this way. I don't want to hear how you do it, dude. You know what I mean? It's good to have an open mind.
Or like with Mark here, I saw him deadlifting one day, and I was like, do you mind if I critique you for a second?
That's a perfect way to segue into that. You know, do you mind? And then most people will be like, no. But
I think you felt it out, though.
Yeah, it took me a while.
Like, cool with actually be like, yeah, of course.
But I would want somebody to, you know, critique me if I'm
doing
your
something.
Point.
Absolutely. It's like, hey, you might want to.
I'm going to be sensitive to how they're going to react to it, but
definitely,
it's hard. I mean, it's something hard considering like most people are so like
standoffish.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to sit there and look at you and be like, oh my gosh, you have an elevated shoulder. You know?
Look at the anterior pelvic tilt.
You have a rotation in your pelvis. You really shouldn't be doing that. No.
Your upper cross.
Unless you ask me.
You're very upper crossy. You should fix that. So, which brings us to sort of kind of what Laura does. I mean, I kind of mentioned upper cross there, but that's a small drop in the bucket to everything else that you do.
Right.
So, Lauren is, what's the certification with?
Posture alignment specialist.
Okay. So that's kind of, people come to you because you have that, and that's really sticks out, and it's something myself that I am getting more interested in, and I think that's where the industry is kind of going, really, because we can get people strong, but we're running into problems because
Right.
people are doing these exercises wrong or over and over with that posture, right, and how we're living outside of here. I guess we can kind of go into what you see in a lot of people. What's the most common thing you see from a person walking off the street, and something you see across the board?
People that know me know that when I go to the beach, like, I'll just sit there and I'm just analyzing back and forth, watching people. So, I mean, it's hard to say because every posture, you're going to see a multitude. But people that come to the gym, I would say the most common would be an anterior pelvic tilt. Would be because of a lot of people sitting. Is shortened, psoas, lengthened hamstrings, lengthened glutes, short, low back, weak abdominals, and then, quads, tight quads. So those are the most common things. Rounded shoulders are the most common things that I see
Call
posturally.
those the douchebag's shoulders, right?
Yeah.
Shoulder syndrome.
But most people are like this all day long, whether they're typing over a computer or just sitting here slouching on their cell phone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are you can't do enough back exercises. I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
so.
We made a joke the other day. I'm like, why even bother working muscles that you can't see in the mirror? You know what I mean? It's pointless. Just curls and chest. That's all we need,
It'll
really.
just be like this. Be a world full of shrimpy
Actually, the
people.
stronger your back is, the bigger your chest is going to get, too.
That's true.
Because it opens up everything, right?
Yeah.
Further back, you get the scaps and
Yeah,
humerus.
more of the stretch in the chest.
An interesting thing with that posture there, like with the inverted ring row or just an inverted row, I would always do them and kind of, when I'm struggling, I'd crane my neck and I'd pull for that last couple inches of the rep. And someone told me to move my head back and
Yeah,
get
stick
proper
your
alignment.
chest out.
And then all of a sudden, boom, like my chest could come up and I can actually finish the movement. It was much
Right.
easier. But then when we kind of get in this position, you're not able to actually pull efficiently.
Right.
That was one really big thing, just off the top of my
Well,
head.
that, you're not using the right muscles to do the job either.
Right. So that's like just arms, basically, at that point, right?
I feel all self-conscious now. Like I have to sit that much more upright into this chair.
It's amazing that, like, I would say just watching people move over the last 10 years, I mean, I learned so much from Rich, too, in his correction, but it's just really like watching, okay, this person's doing a one-arm row. What are they recruiting? Are they using the right muscle? Is it turning on? Why is it not turning on? So, I mean, those are kind of the questions that I asked myself over the years. I mean, I had an injury in 2005. I rotated my pelvis, and what happened was my one glute would not fire. So I was doing squats, and I'm like, I couldn't get it to fire, I was compensating using more quad to do the work.
Right.
And it was just really, it was staying in that pattern, and I couldn't break free of that pattern. And I was going to a chiropractor, I was doing physical therapy, you name it, and nothing seemed to work. I just felt like I had to get it adjusted every 5 seconds. And another chiropractor had introduced me to what's called the Egoscue method, which is the posture alignment certification that I have. And started doing these, what are called E-sizes, every day. And it completely changed my posture. Not only that, I call it kind of putting a seatbelt on for the day and then doing your workout, because you're getting all of these muscles to fire the way they're supposed to fire. Then you do your workout. Not only do you feel amazing, but your performance is that much better.
So you're developing an awareness, I guess what you're saying, when you say like putting on the seatbelt.
Yeah.
It's like building that awareness and consciousness.
Right, but you're going to know when you did or didn't do it. I mean, your body's just going to feel off.
Okay, so this would be a really good topic then. Stretching. Slow, static stretching. Is that good or bad before you work out? There's a lot of people who say, oh, it's bad, especially if what you're going for is like speed and power, those types of things.
You're going to read a lot of different,
Oh yeah.
there's definitely controversy in everything.
Right.
What
your opinion is, and what do you do with your clients?
Okay, so for example, if my quads are tight, I'm going to stretch my quads before I go work out because I'm not efficiently moving the muscle and
Helps you get in the positions better, right? Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it would be no different than if okay, static versus dynamic. I would think, depending on the menu and depending on what's wrong with them posturally, I want them to fix their posture. So I would want them to do some of the static things. Like I said, about like somebody with an anterior pelvic tilt, they're going to have very, very tight and short psoas and quads. So yes, I want them to definitely lengthen them before they would work out. Same with the low back. So I mean, it's going to be different per person, and you're not going to be doing just static things prior. So it's kind of hard to answer because it's a completely different. It's kind of like Pilates and yoga derivatives that are go into that, but it's not really just static stretch.
So a combination of both.
Yeah.
A dynamic stretch and slow static stretch.
Correct.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is what she's trying to say is that it's hard to drill correct movement and form if there are deficiencies like anterior pelvic tilt. Like you can't really brace properly if your back is you're in this hyperextended position, and your glutes are or let's say shut off. So it really doesn't really do you any good if you're just reinforcing that pattern.
Correct.
So say before you do deadlifts, you need to kind of adjust that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you foam roll all the time.
Yeah.
So you're doing fascial
That's
release, which is another form of, let's say, static stretching. You're lengthening the muscle. It's not really any different. I mean, there's different ways to skin a cat. You're just doing something a little bit different.
By the way, who skins cats?
It's like
That's such a weird. I mean, honestly, I get it, but it's such a weird saying.
Well,
Like,
who eats an elephant one bite at a time?
that's true.
Who does that?
And who has elephants in their
Pedestrians.
rooms? Like, for starters, like, oh, I walked in and there's an elephant in the
Get
room.
the hell out of here.
Right?
But sorry, like, okay, so going back.
So so do a combination. You want to stretch those things that you know you need to work on, so it'll allow you to stay safe, get in better positions during the workout, right? And then, would you recommend saving or doing some static stretching at the end
Absolutely.
as well, right?
I would do what I call neutral exercises to re-lengthen the iliopsoas and put you back into neutral spine.
Okay.
So
Nice. So, for those of you guys who don't know, the psoas is one of the only muscles, it is the only muscle that attaches from your lumbar spine to your femur, right? So it runs basically down here into the femur. So when you lift your leg, that's your psoas. When you're doing any crunches or sit-ups, it's your psoas. So it's a deep muscle. It's a little bit harder to get to if you want to massage it or stretch it. Most people just think of these muscles we can feel and stretch on the outside, but that's one that we need to pay a little more attention to.
And especially somebody who has an anterior pelvic tilt, is changing the position of your pelvis.
So
And there's so many things that go along with just the psoas. I mean, in a deeper, if you want to talk about deeper things, but
you can go there
emotionally,
if you want.
digestive, all of these things affect the psoas if it's tight.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, you said you had some complications. You didn't actually get it diagnosed, but you said you had some severe lower back sciatic pain sort of stuff going on once upon a time.
Yeah, I did.
And I know that if that gets far more complicated, I've read some like horror stories of like guys having to get their nerves resected. Like, you have to do a nerve resection because they couldn't even go to the bathroom anymore. There was so much impingement.
Wow.
Well, yeah, you'll lose. You'll pee and like just let everything go without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And then you'll get drop foot. You'll be
Right.
walking with a limp and stuff. If the nerve damage is bad,
You know, just lost control. So that's
no fun.
That's the depth, I guess you could kind of say. Because we've got like a good grab bag of different things that we can address. And like I mentioned before, I think you're going to be here. You're at least going to be a pretty common guest for the StrongCast because you do know so much. And
So we've been posting some things about anterior pelvic tilt. Lauren has actually been giving me some recommendations and things to take care of that. So she's been a great help because I was like, I think I have this, and I pulled my shirt up. She's like, yep, that's it. You got it. I mean, just in 1 second, she was able to tell me I had it. And so she's been helping me out quite a bit with that and other things as well. We've just been picking her brain. We're glad to have her here.
It's all those years of wearing heels. Girls gonna make money.
That's right.
But it is a common thing that, I mean, Olympic lifters, power lifters will go into an anterior tilt, which actually you want to keep a neutral spine, they found, because it does, really, really contract the lumbar spine and put that spasm so much. And then what happens is your glutes, or you're not recruiting your lower abdominals to help support. So you almost want to kind of get into that neutral spine versus being hyperextended, which puts you into that anterior.
So hard for me to stand like that. I would get so fatigued both ways. Even when I would get in a good position, I would get tired, and those muscles were just so weak and deconditioned for me. It was hard to. Didn't matter if I was standing wrong or right. It was both ways sucked, but I had to go with the better way. And I've been working on my lower abdominals quite a bit, stretching out my psoas and hip flexors, smashing, all that good stuff. It's making a big difference already.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because, okay, if we want to go down a path, there's so many paths we can take. Lower back pain is a big one.
Yeah.
And since you've suffered from it, the three of us have all been involved in strength sports. And at some point, someone's probably taught us you need to have a curve in your back, like when you get into that, like,
look up at the ceiling,
as
you're squatting.
That deadlift position. The deadlift position is the bottom of a clean or the bottom of a snatch. So, I kind of want to dive deep into, how did you develop that, like, hyperextended position, and what in your, I guess, environment kind of reinforced, like, you should keep doing that?
Well, it probably started when I was in middle school. I started the thing with the high school football players, and they're all like, when you're coming up from the squat, eyes up, look at the ceiling, look at the lights, whatever. And so I started squatting, and my abs were completely off, and I was arching, and my erectors and back were just basically keeping me upright as I'm squatting. I just did this over time. And I also went to a movement specialist, found out that my right ankle was tighter than my left, which caused me to shift over to my good side, my more mobile foot. And so that little shift was messing with me, and it eventually led to a bulging disc. Now, I'm probably going to be getting an MRI here soon, I think. So I don't know if it's 2 bulging discs, 1, but I had a bulging disc because I got sciatica, which is like a shooting pain down the back of your leg. I mean, it was so brutal that I had to lay my seat back all the way and drive my fingertips. I could barely see over the steering wheel like grandma. I mean, it was terrible. And then I couldn't squat or deadlift for close to a year, and it was just awful. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so I just started stretching more, working on core strength more. I actually started really focusing on getting the overall inflammation down with turmeric, lots of berries, and tart cherry juice. I would do 2 shots a day. And as soon as I did that, my sciatica was gone. I was like, oh, please, thank you. Like, this was amazing. I couldn't believe it, but it's no fun. I mean, I don't wish that on anybody. So that's why it's so important to have good posture. Get rid of the anterior pelvic tilt. Combat.
That's usually that's very common with a rotation. So I wouldn't be surprised if you had any sort of pelvic rotation, because what happens is when the pelvis shifts here and it pinches on that nerve. So that could be totally corrected, which would get you out of pain. And then structurally, changing some of the muscles to fire in a different way could put you back into alignment to where, the bulging disc should go away.
It's like a sciatic pain on the left side.
I work with chiropractors, and they'll tell me, what's going on with the person. I mean, if it's so bad that I want you to go see them first, I'm not going to do anything. I want them to have the immediate relief, but it's not going to fix itself. You have to do the exercises. So,
which is tough because
that right there will never go away on its own. Nothing does structurally. Yeah. And the thing is, you could have had, let's say you had an accident as a child, or even fell, I don't know, didn't even realize it. But any trauma to the body, whether it be an injury or an accident, your alignment is affected by it. So all of these things add up, and now you're lifting on dysfunction. And if you don't even realize you're doing it, that's what causes a lot of the bulging discs and things like that.
So it's like saying building on top of a broken foundation.
Yeah. So if you think of alignment as being, here's your foundation, now you're lifting on it.
And that's your spine.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
I was squatting with 50% of my max when I hurt my back. I'm like,
It's nothing.
what is this? And I was so mad at myself and at life, and I'm like, it wasn't just that one day. It was definitely just the straw.
The cumulative
broke the
microtrauma.
camel's
Yeah.
back. Absolutely.
And that's the thing. That's why I kind of wanted to dive into the circumstances that led to that and the accumulation of that, because most people don't really see that unless you're a specialist and you're conscious of it all the time. Like you said, no one really puts on that safety belt at the beginning of the day.
Well, how many people bend down to squat down to
And
pick up something
bend at the lower back.
Yeah.
Yeah, bending at the waist.
Instead of hinge at the
So let's say you have an anterior pelvic tilt. You're already compressed, in your lumbar spine. Then I go to lengthen it by bending over without actually kind of slowly lowering, releasing it. I went from completely compressed, it's like a rubber band. You know what I mean? And I opened it up. It's just that quickly.
So just gradually.
What do you think about, what's Louis Simmons' machine called? The reverse hyper.
Reverse hyper.
What do you think about that for people with back pain, like myself?
You're talking about a weighted machine that your back is against here and you're going back like this?
You lay on top of it, and then my legs hang down, and they're in holsters basically, and you can add weight to your feet and legs. So I'm here, and I'm basically going into an extension, reverse back extension, like I have THR.
I'm not a big
Just lift your
fan
legs.
of any sort of hyperextension, especially with somebody with their pelvis tilted, because you're putting more hyperextension on hyperextension.
Right.
Does that make sense?
The benefit,
So you're
I think,
stressing it out even more, and you're taking those joints and you're going.
I agree with that. I think the benefit is when you swing the legs back underneath,
Oh, this is a
under
reverse
control,
hyperextension.
reverse hyper.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Coming underneath kind
Right.
of
I have people
decompresses
do that
that.
on the table with the ball in between their legs.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
I would
good.
still put like a pad or something underneath your pelvis, so it lifts it up a little bit, and then when you lift up, you're still recruiting the glutes and the hamstrings and a little bit of the erectors.
So I guess.
You do want to strengthen them.
Yeah. So I guess what you're kind of saying, because I was worried about the whole reverse hyper thing too,
But I
because
do like that position better than hyperextending, but that's not more of a reverse.
so it's actually as it swings down through the bottom, it's actually pulling everything, I guess, apart. Is that what it's
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And
Finding
then when you're
space.
coming back up, you're still at neutral versus hyperextending.
Okay, that's what I'm concerned about, because I've seen it at a prior gym I trained at, was people were actually going to hyperextension at the top.
You got to keep the pelvis down.
Okay.
Really have to focus on that lower abdominal recruitment, because you still can't go into hyperextension even with
Oh,
legs
see, I didn't know that. So you're
naturally.
supposed to keep your stomach.
But that's
raised.
why if you put something underneath your pelvis, it kind of allows you to forces you kind of to keep that pelvis down, so that when you go up, it won't let you go into hyperextension. So you can't.
Okay, cool. So recommend for people.
Recommend it.
Even
Well, anybody, I would say.
all right.
It's a safe way, I would say, of training versus, if you're that in control of muscles and you know exactly, hey, my, abdominals are going to recruit, I know when my low back is going to kick in and I'm hyperextending, by all means go ahead. But most people don't know what that feeling is. So.
Right.
So you got to develop the awareness first, which is hard because you don't know. There's normally not a guy at the reverse hyper that's going to tell you this is how you operate the reverse hyper.
Right.
Which it was,
Right, yeah.
a butler
Yeah.
type
Nice,
guy.
yeah.
Hello, sir. This is how you
And
operate the
That's why
hyper.
a lot of beginners, people who are beginning, should work with a trainer.
Yeah.
Because
You hear that, guys?
even trainers should work with trainers. I'm sorry. Because you learn from each other. You learn different
So
things.
true.
But,
Everyone, you can learn one thing, or every person you meet knows something you don't.
Yeah.
You know.
absolutely.
You're right, and it's funny. Like as you grow, I think you probably didn't experience this as much because you learn in a collegiate environment. But for me, being it was informal, there's a lot of like, bodybuilding sucks because I do powerlifting, or yoga's stupid because I'm into gymnastics. But I think you and I have agreed on this, and I think we've touched on the same point, that movement is movement.
Yeah.
And it's like we have the same body with like different languages, and we kind of speak the same language almost. But we're so caught up in like, my language is better than your language.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
And I'm saying all this because it wasn't until, because I was deadlifting kind of the same way, like getting the hyperextended position and really like bracing my back as tight as I could, until I kept listening to this concept of creating space. It was in yoga that I actually heard this. It's creating space. I think creating space is just, when you create that stretch muscle, where it's at the proper length, I guess you could say. I think that's kind of where it was.
So an isometric contraction kind
of.
Or
Yeah, but just having it so that it's in the right position as opposed to like hyperextended.
Okay.
That's kind of how I grasped it, because I think I was watching some like old deadlift tutorials, and they put the stick on your back.
Yeah.
You're supposed to create a gap. But I think people kind of over exaggerate that gap. But really, it's like there should be a gap, but there should just kind of be some space where there's like if you imagine your spine, I think I'm talking too much. But if you imagine your spine, you're not like squeezing all this way.
Right.
It's like it's all tight, braced, the back as well as the front.
The best way someone explained it to me, I think it was maybe John Wellborn or a podcast I was listening to, is if you were to have 500 pounds come out of the sky and be put on your back, how would you brace for it? You naturally know the position, your strongest position to support that weight on your back.
Like this.
Like this?
But that's interesting that you say that, because I don't know if this ever happened to you, but when I get to a max lift, it's like I don't forget how to lift. And I would do some things, crazy things that I wasn't doing for prior lifts. And you're like, what's going on here?
That's up here. That is so up here.
But it's like my body forgot how to lift. And I'm
Yeah.
I had to do these mini, you'll have to ask for sometime. I was so mental, when it came to, if I felt a weight and I did a weight before, I could do it every single time. If I was new to a weight, it was like, I've never lifted before in my life. And I don't know if that ever happened to you, but I had to do these small increments. Okay, I mastered that, let's go 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Big time.
But when you say that, is somebody really prepared for that every single time? And you should have the lift to be the same every single time.
That's true.
If you look at some of the pioneers in even weightlifting, you had Kelly, I can't think, Peter Kelly. If you ever go back and watch his lifting, it's phenomenal. I mean, it was perfect every single time. It was just so fluid, And I mean, when you have a perfect lift, and it just feels so good.
Especially if it's a snatch.
Yes.
Right?
Because that's the one lift that's it's so up and down. It's one day it's your favorite, and then it's a bitch the next time. It just sucks because nothing's going right. It just doesn't feel right at all, Can't hit your 75%.
Right.
I wish I knew that feeling.
You will.
I feel like the snatch is you will, young man. I feel like the snatch is like the deadlift in terms of gratification, because there's nothing quite as insane as ripping something off the floor and throwing it straight up over your head and then standing up with it.
It's kind of a crazy.
That's pretty insane.
About it, yeah.
But I think because I've been trying to figure out how to do this as best as I can. How do you have that original conversation of you see someone across the gym and go, "What the hell are you doing?" and I've been guilty. I've seen it, and I'm like, oh,
LA Fitness, Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
You
Love
can't work
going there.
Yeah. But it's
great place for you to pick up.
That's true. You suck. Come with me. That's probably not the best way to do it. But it's I'm always trying to figure out how do I go about teaching them that without it being offensive. And so it's I think performance has been one of those things where you said when you see a lift and it looks great and it just moves smoothly, I think that's when you just kind of couch it in performance. Because I think when you're hey, if you you're not going to tweak your back if you don't hyperextend. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I don't really care because I can get a bigger lift. But if you say, if you switch up your position a little bit, you can actually add like 5, 10, 15 pounds, and I think that's more gratifying to someone.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree. It's you just have to be really careful how you approach it.
Yeah.
I think also too, maybe just save those comments if you don't know this person until you see them in
Can't
position.
help it.
Either you've spoken with them a little bit, or you think they're going to get hurt.
That's true.
Try to save it for that because I see that stuff and I want to go over there. Part of it's maybe it's like I just want to show you how much I know, and I want to help that person too. But
well, I think if you compliment them too for their effort in the beginning anyway, like, oh my gosh, you're
gratitude
awesome.
sandwich, right?
Yeah. And then just kind of like, would you mind if I showed you something? Or, and just kind of give them like a tip.
Yeah.
If you compliment someone, they're going to receive it a lot better. Like
True.
you said.
Your hair is so pretty. Your lip sucks.
They were like, hey,
You did really good.
But,
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest challenge. It's going to be a pretty common thing that people will joke about forever. It's just like, how do you approach someone if you feel like you can do better?
There was a serious CrossFitter in here one day, and honestly, I just went up to him and I was like, you have great lifts, but you could get a lot more out of your lifts. Do you mind if I give you some pointers?
Yeah.
And he looked
How
at
do you
me.
take that?
He looked at me funny, and I'm like, sorry. I said,
Yeah, because I could feel
I
that.
used to compete, and it's my natural nature. I feel like I should, give you a few critiques. And he's just like, okay. And I was like, you're not finishing your pull. And I was like, and you're catching it too soon. So I said, let me show you. So he received it, and he listened, and he watched. Then he asked me if I would train him.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
Just kind of like when they start feeling comfortable, they're like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. Why didn't they pick this up over CrossFit? I don't know.
Well, that's I know. Like
We'll be there for another day.
Yeah, we'll stay there for a whole nother like drunken day. But I mean, that was good. Did that person actually get results right then and there?
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's the
Just
biggest
for
thing.
little
That's
cues,
okay. Yeah.
And I mean, that's again my years of Rich cueing me, and I've had many of the coaches who have you put in your tool belt, are able to implement to other people. But I mean, that's my passion. I love it. I love watching people do it, and I want them to perform well.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's an important take home for myself, and I think for anyone who wants to get into training or if they feel like they're passionate about helping people, is you have to kind of step outside your religion and learn other ways, because if that other way gets the person in the door and you actually help them, then you'll have done a service for everybody. Instead of just being like, well, that's just how I do it, and they suck because they don't want to do it my way.
Right.
It doesn't help anyone else to kind of move along. I mean, it's certainly like the other day, she was like, you were doing lateral raises.
Oh yeah, you called me out. You called me out so hard.
And the way that's over there.
Yeah. That's not how you do it.
Sorry.
It's just
There's
in
nothing
nature.
like that gratitude sandwich. Where was that the other day?
Listen, man.
Just give me the shit.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
thanks.
What are you working?
What are you even doing?
What are you doing?
Why are you here?
What are you
Wait,
trying to accomplish with that?
Oh man.
that looks painful. But I mean, but we were all kind of cool at that point.
Yeah,
We
no,
all
it
kinda
was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, but we already established relationships.
Yeah,
exactly.
But even then, you said with that one guy, you were like, it's just in my nature. No, I'm sorry.
So,
You have to be willing to come
he
back
had
off.
to receive it. But
Yeah.
until I showed him what he was doing versus what I was doing, did I not gain his trust?
Yeah.
So it did take a little bit, but I mean, it just depends on the person. And I'm going to say this because I would say when I first got out of strength and conditioning, I thought I knew everything. Let me just tell you something. The more you grow as a person, you know nothing. You're going to continue to learn. So, I mean, that was probably a humbling thing, over the last, several years is that I really don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I felt the same way. I felt so cocky when I first got my coaching position at this big CrossFit gym in Orlando. I thought I knew everything about Olympic weightlifting. I thought it was shit. But it shows, I think you can tell how good somebody is by when they say something like that. It's where actually, I don't know a lot of things.
It's that humility.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Even a doctor I trained, he said, you're absolutely right. He goes, you're going to continue to learn the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's that's a good place to be.
And it's hard. It's hard when sort of someone gives you the title of, every time you think you figure something out, you didn't figure anything out. I know. It's oh my God, there's so much I have to learn now.
I think I learned more since I've been out of college on my own than I did in college. It was a good base, but it kind of told me what to look at. And
you don't get the application,
Right. Oh, yeah. I wish I would have done, if I'd have gone back, I'd done an internship, would have gone at it a little bit differently, but...
The real world definitely kind of kicks your ass a little bit and then shows you, okay, you think you know.
It's humbling. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It tastes great.
Yeah.
But to that, you sort of want to strike a balance because I do make a point to sort of compliment you a lot. And it's speaking to your achievements. It's like, you know a lot more of the formal stuff than I do. And it's a very strong basis because it gives you structure. I kind of just flop around in the wind.
Maybe that's how you think of yourself, but I don't think that.
But it's complementary. And I think the interesting thing is I see both of those aspects in you where you do have this solid background. But because you understand that for everything that you learn, you don't really know as much. You become more and more like my mind is open and so much better. Yeah, exactly.
But I couldn't push somebody on bench. I don't know much about bench at all.
Yeah.
Or you have
Got you. What's our second podcast?
I'm willing to learn because there's people come to me and they'll be like, I want to train for a show. Well, I've never trained anybody for a show, so I'm probably not the person you wanted to go talk to.
As long as you're up front with them first, right?
So, I've done that in the past. I thought I could train anybody for anything.
Yeah.
That was, in my 20s, and I learned the hard way is, oh, shoot.
Oh, shit. I'm not that good.
So, I would be more than happy to refer out. But my whole feeling is that when you give and you give to the right person, you're going to get back. You're going to get the clients that are going to be drawn to you and what you're capable of. So, you had asked me last night in an email, would I ever, as far as signing waiver and things like that. The thing is that it's going to be rare. You're very rarely going to find that you're going to turn them away.
Right.
Because they came to you for a specific purpose and for a specific reason, and you're going to be able to. I think it's the energy that draws people anyway, and you're not going to be ready for a certain person. You're going to know that up front.
Right.
So,
okay.
I think it's like
you're
not going to get all these challenging people right away. It's like as you grow in your field, then you're going to take on more of different challenges. So
that's how we grow, right?
Yeah.
So I guess to just kind of bring this all to a wrap.
Yep. It's about that time, huh?
Yeah, it's about that time. I hate to cut it short.
I know we're at 48 minutes.
You gotta stop somewhere.
I'm like, hey, we'll keep this about 30 minutes.
Yeah,
right. Never happens.
See what happens? You just kind of get carried.
You go off.
Yeah. There's so many different things.
Go down the rabbit hole, man.
Yeah. Gonna wrap it up. And so I guess to bring it all together, the biggest thing here is that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know nearly as much as you think you know. And
it's always better to seek someone out who has a better understanding of whatever that is, whether it be weight training or whatever. And that's kind of what I've been doing, and me and Mark have been doing with Lauren. So that's why we wanted to bring her on the podcast today. It's been very helpful.
And that's actually the point of this podcast is that we're really asking the questions we want answered. And if somebody out there happens to have the same questions, then they get those answers as well. And so another one is besides that first point, what about the humility is that there's always room to grow and always room to learn.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
Always.
It works until it doesn't.
Always.
Like your hyperextended deadlift, strong deadlift worked until one day you went for 50% and
You gotta learn to be humble at a certain point. Yeah,
It's like-
willing to completely step back and reevaluate, learn from it, move forward.
so Sweet Life always has some humble pie ready for you.
It does.
It's like, here you go, sweetie. Have some humble pie.
Well, thanks for inviting me to come.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Glad to
It's
have
been
you.
a pleasure. So we do this thing. Do you have something off the top of your head that you can just piece together? Probably a little more PG than the last one.
Man, I don't have anything PG today. I got nothing. I know I didn't come prepared today.
That's all right. That's all right.
Let's ask you. We had asked this in our first podcast. Okay, would you rather have to swim everywhere you go?
Oh yeah.
So imagine that you step out your front door. You step out here, it's automatically like Venice, Italy style. You got canals. Okay, at least it's clear and chlorinated. Could be salty.
No, that's funny, but okay.
Then you have to, or the alternative is you have to listen to Nickelback from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep.
I wasn't
On
a
repeat.
Nickelback.
Oh, that's a lot of work to have to.
It is a
swim
lot of work. It would take a long
If
time.
you said run, I'd be all over it. I'll run everywhere.
That's too easy of a
See?
question.
Yeah.
It's funny how Nickelback is just getting so much
And I
heat.
do like Nickelback, so.
I should have said that. I had a feeling. You kind of got set up. For
Next.
that. That's that.
Take it
Well,
all back.
there'll be plenty of opportunities to answer questions like that. But this was
We can still
definitely
be
awesome.
So, like our Facebook page, StrongCast. We have the StrongCast on Instagram. Like us, follow us on YouTube, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And
And we'll continue to like put out some new and interesting stuff. But if you guys have any specific questions, I'm more than willing to answer them or have Lauren answer them because she's a wealth of knowledge here at GrindFit Sarasota.
It's
With that, we bring episode 3
to a
of
wrap.
StrongCast to a wrap.
That's it.
Bye. Have a good one.